What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Monday, December 19th, 2022, and I wanted to talk to you guys about refugees from the big cities after an SHTF situation. So what do I mean when I talk about refugees from the big cities? Well, I'm talking about unprepared masses of people fleeing big cities after a catastrophic situation, okay? So when I talk about a catastrophic situation, I'm talking about a nuclear war, an EMP, economic collapse, a natural disaster, okay? That's what I mean when I talk about an SHTF situation. You know, basically what's going to happen is after any kind of SHTF situation, you're going to have lots and lots of unprepared people that are going to realize that they don't have the resources they need to survive. Okay, whether it's food, water, shelter, they're going to realize at some point that they don't have what they need. And because they live in a big city, they're going to realize that the big city doesn't really offer much, okay, in a grid down situation. The cities offer a lot when everything is working, but when the grid is down and things are not working, the cities are basically useless. There's nothing in a city for you. It's nothing but concrete and millions of other people that are going to be hungry, thirsty, and unprepared. So, you know, all these people in the big cities, they're going to realize, oh crap, you know, I'm screwed if I stay here. I got to go somewhere, you know. And so what they're going to do is they're going to come out to the country like where I live. So it's a real threat, you know, if you live in the countryside like I do, or even if you live in the outer suburbs of a big city, you need to be prepared for this flood of people from the big cities, okay, because it's going to happen. So I want to just give you guys some real world examples of this, okay? So after Hurricane Sandy in New York City, okay, Hurricane Sandy was I believe category 1, almost category 2 hurricane, and it made landfall on Long Island. And after Hurricane Sandy, you had a lot of people that went to the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania after the hurricane because they didn't have power, and power wasn't going to be back for a while. So, you know, people fled out of Long Island, they fled out of New York City, and they went to the Pocono Mountains because a lot of people in New York City and Long Island, they have vacation homes in the Pocono Mountains. So they went out there. And I have some friends that live in the Poconos, and they were telling me that that a lot of these people from Long Island and New York City, they weren't the nicest people when they got there. They were very rude and, you know, very pushy because they knew that they were basically refugees. You know, they didn't have power at their house, or their house got flooded. So they were very desperate. You know, they needed to find a place to stay. They went to hotels, they went to campgrounds. And it was just a big disaster, you know, and the same thing happened after, you know, the pandemic. A lot of people from New York City area flooded up to upstate New York. A lot of people from California and the West Coast, Seattle, Portland, they moved to rural states like Idaho. And so, you know, another example of this would also be during Russian invasion of Ukraine, okay, when news got out that Russia was about to invade Ukraine, you had millions of Ukrainians flee to Poland, and a lot of them came from Kiev, the capital city, okay, because if you remember, in the beginning of the war, Russia tried to take the capital, okay, they tried to take Kiev, and so you had like over 1 million people from the Kiev metro area flee the city, okay? So this could happen here in the United States or in Europe, Canada, So you need to prepare for that, okay? And what's the best way to prepare for that? Well, number one is to move out of a big city if you live in one. I always tell people the number one most important prep, besides your health and fitness, is your location, okay? You want to live in an area that's relatively safe, okay? Far from nuclear war targets, a good distance from nuclear power plants, and the main thing is you want to be far away from any kind of monster cities. When I say a monster city, I'm talking about New York City, I'm talking about Chicago, I'm talking about Los Angeles, I'm talking about Eastern Texas. You have all those big cities there, Houston, Dallas, I believe I'm missing some other ones, Austin, San Antonio, and these areas, you know, you have millions and millions and millions of people squeezed into a small area. For example, New York City has 8 million people, guys, 8 million people just in New York City alone, okay? The population of my state, Pennsylvania, is 11 million. So literally, if you look at New York City and the surrounding area, let's say like northern New Jersey, Long Island, and southern New York, that whole area has as many people as the entire state of Pennsylvania, if not more, okay? And that's just crazy to think about. It's a lot of people, and if there's any kind of crisis like a nuclear war or EMP, a large power outage, what if there's another sabotage attack like in North Carolina, except they take out, you know, the entire power grid to the northeast? You're going to have millions and millions of unprepared people, okay? They're going to be panicking, they're going to be hungry, they're not going to know what to do. You know, most of the people that live in big cities, and I hate to generalize, most people that live in cities, they don't really have any useful skills, because they live in an apartment. You know, they work a white-collar job, and they have no desire to broaden their skills besides what they have, you know. So they're good on computers, they live in their apartment, and they don't have any practical skills, you know. They can't work on a car, they can't fix a car, they can't gut a deer, they can't, you know, survive in the wilderness, they can't shoot, they can't defend themselves. Many of them don't even eat meat. So they're very physically weak. They don't have enough protein in their diet, and they're physically weak people because they're vegans and vegetarians. And you're going to have all those people, and they're going to be panicking. And, you know, they're going to come out here looking for resources, okay? And, you know, this is something you need to be aware of, okay? And I'm not saying all city people are like that. They're all vegans, and they're all, you know, not practically skilled people, but, you know, a lot of them are, and, you know, they're going to be panicking. And so general rule of thumb is you want to be at least 200 miles away in a straight line from any kind of monster city. Okay, a monster city, I mean like New York City, I mean, you know, Dallas, Chicago, LA, you know, cities that have over 2 or 3 million people. You want to be at least 200 miles in a straight line away from those kinds of cities, okay? And, you know, the reason why is you want to have a good buffer zone, okay? Because what's going to happen is most people, they're going to try to drive out, and they're going to run out of gas at some point. So you want to be at least like a full tank of gas away from a monster city. Now, where I'm located, I don't know exactly how far in a straight line I am to New York City. I think I'm like at least 200, if not more, miles from New York City in a straight line. Now, obviously, for people from New York City to get to my area, they're not going to be driving in a straight line. They're going to have to go on roads. Roads don't go straight, so it's even further by roadway. Now, if we're talking about smaller cities or more moderate-sized cities, you want to be at least 100 miles away from like a moderate-sized city. So moderate-sized city would be like 1 million people or so, maybe 2 million. ideally you want to be 100 miles away from a city like that. And when I say you want to be in that location, either you want to have a bug out location there, or you want to have primary residence. The ideal scenario is to have a primary residence far away from a big city or even a moderate-sized city, all right? 200 miles from a monster city and 100 miles from a moderate-sized city. That's the general rule of thumb. And like I said, your number one most important prep is, locating yourself in a safe location, okay? Far away from monster cities, far away from, moderate-sized cities of million-plus people. But if you can't do that, then you want to have a bug-out location, maybe a piece of land or, some place that you can go to, and you want to have it planned out. But, the big cities are going to basically be death traps, okay? Because, in a big city, people are 100% reliant on the government to provide everything for them. The water, okay, the sewage, okay, the sewage pumps that pump sewage through the mains where all the waste goes out. There's pumps that do that. When those pumps stop working because of a power outage, guess what? Sewage is going to back up and people are not going to have a place to go to the bathroom. There's not going to be trash collection anymore. And, the problem with the city is that there's nowhere to put your trash because, people live on top of each other. So where are you going to put your trash? You can't just, burn your garbage in your yard. Like over here, I have this whole piece of property. I can just pile up my trash in one spot or I can burn it. But, if you live in a big city, where are you going to do that? You can't. So people are going to realize that and they're going to say, oh crap, I want to get out of here. It's a death trap. And they're going to flee the city, okay? And, if we're talking about a nuclear war, people are going to flee cities also after a nuclear war, or even right before a nuclear war, because they're going to realize that there's no shelter in the cities, and they're going to realize that the cities are a target. So they're going to panic and they're going to flee the cities. They're going to say, man, I want to get the heck out of here. Russia's got a nuke pointed right here. I want to get away, or they're going to realize that it's just not going to be a feasible place to exist, after a nuclear strike. So, these are things you need to be aware of. So if you live in the countryside or you live in the outer suburbs, you need to know, what direction are these refugees going to be coming from? Okay, where are the big cities and moderate-sized cities in relation to you? And what are the avenues of approach? Where are the highways? Where are the main roads that they could possibly come in from? Another general rule of thumb is you want to be at least 10 miles away from any kind of exit from an interstate, okay? Because what's going to happen is most of the refugees from the big cities, they're going to come on interstates. They're going to jump on an interstate and they're just going to keep driving, and then they're going to take random exits. They're going to take random exits and they're going to look for resources. They're going to possibly pillage, and do what they need to do to survive. I mean, people are going to be starving. Their kids are going to be starving. If you have a house right on one of the exit ramps, they're going to probably stop into your house and ask for food. They may try to take your food, but at the very least, you're going to have people asking if you could provide shelter for them, asking for food, asking for water. So these are things, you need to be aware of, and you need to think about what are the avenues of approach, where the refugee is going to be coming from, and, like I said, 200 miles away from a monster city, 100 miles from a moderate-sized city, and you want to be 10 miles away from an exit ramp on an interstate, okay? So just wanted to give you guys something to think about. I'm prepared for this, even though I live far away from big cities, and even like Pittsburgh and Philly are pretty far away from me. I don't know the exact mileage, but I live in north central Pennsylvania, so I'm very far away from any kind of monster city. But I am aware that people would try to, let's say, come out here from New York City possibly. But, you know, in the wintertime, as you can see, it would be extremely difficult for people from New York City to come out here because of the snow and just the distance. You know, people would run out of gas by the time they got here. And Pittsburgh and Philly are also far. And, you know, then to the west of me, I have some cities in Ohio. I have Cleveland. And then past Cleveland, there's Toledo and Detroit. But that's, you know, a good distance away. But, you know, if there's refugees coming from New York City and they're heading west into the Midwest, I know they're going to try to come through here. But most likely they're going to probably run out of gas, you know. But, you know, these are things you guys need to think about, okay? It's definitely going to happen if there's an SHTF situation or a nuclear war. And I don't mean to insult anybody. You know, it's just the fact that a lot of people that live in big cities, they don't really have a lot of practical skills and they're not preppers, you know. And those are the kinds of people that are going to panic the most. Like we saw after Hurricane Sandy on Long Island, people fighting over gas, people, you know, panicking and fleeing to the Poconos. So, you know, that's pretty much it. You know, think about that. Take care. God bless. And don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere.